The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That's what the Proverbs says. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10. It's one of those verses people know or have heard. It sounds important. It sounds profound, but what does it actually mean? How can fear, an emotion we usually try to avoid, be the start of something good like wisdom? Let's be honest. The word fear makes us uncomfortable. It brings to mind being scared of the dark or being afraid of a bully or the dread that comes with bad news. It feels like a negative, paralyzing thing. We think of fear as something that holds us back, something that clouds our judgment. So to hear that it's the beginning of wisdom seems strange. It feels like a contradiction. How can the starting point for clear thinking be an emotion that makes us want to run and hide? This is where we have to stop and think. The Bible was written a long time ago. The words it uses, especially in the original Hebrew, can have a wider range of meaning than our modern English words. When we hear fear, we mostly think of terror. But the Hebrew word used here, yirah, is much richer. It can mean terror, yes, but it can also mean awe, reverence, respect, and worship. So what kind of fear are we talking about? It's not the cowering fear of a slave before a cruel master. It's not the panic you feel when you're in danger. The fear of the Lord is something else entirely. It's the overwhelming sense of awe you feel when you stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon and realize how small you are. It's the deep respect a sailor has for the ocean, understanding its power and majesty. It's the reverence an apprentice feels for a master craftsman, knowing the depth of their skill and knowledge. This fear is about seeing things as they really are. It's about seeing God for who he is, and seeing ourselves for who we are in comparison. God is infinite, eternal, all-powerful, and perfectly holy. We are finite, temporary, limited, and flawed. The gap between us is staggering. The fear of the Lord is what happens when you truly grasp that reality. It's not about being afraid that God is out to get you. It's about being stunned into silence by his sheer greatness. Think about meeting someone truly impressive, maybe a brilliant scientist, a world-class musician, or a leader of incredible integrity. In their presence, you might feel a little small. You choose your words carefully. You listen more than you talk. You have a deep respect for them. Now multiply that feeling by infinity. That starts to get you close to the fear of the Lord. It's a mix of wonder, respect, and an acute awareness of your own limitations. It's a healthy, grounding, perspective-shifting kind of fear. This awe is the beginning of wisdom. The word beginning here can mean the first step, the starting point, but it can also mean the main part, the controlling principle. It's both. It's where wisdom starts, and it's the central idea that holds all of wisdom together. Without this foundational awe of God, any wisdom you build is built on sand. It's just cleverness or cunning, not true wisdom. So how does this work? How does this profound sense of awe actually produce wisdom in a person's life? It's not magic. It's a process. And the first thing it does is produce humility. Pride is the great enemy of wisdom. A person who thinks they know it all cannot learn anything. An arrogant person is unteachable. They've already decided they have the answers, so they're not looking for them. Their mind is a closed box. Wisdom can't get in. They might be smart, they might be knowledgeable, but they are not wise. Their pride blinds them to their own ignorance and their own flaws. The fear of the Lord shatters this pride. When you stand in awe of God, you can't maintain an inflated view of yourself. You see your own smallness, you see your own mistakes, you realize you don't have all the answers. This is a painful experience, but it's essential. It's the moment you stop pretending and get honest. It's the moment you say, I don't know, I need help, I need guidance. Humility is the soil in which wisdom grows. It opens your mind. It makes you teachable. A humble person is willing to listen. They are willing to be corrected. They are willing to admit they were wrong. This posture of openness is the absolute prerequisite for gaining wisdom. You can't fill a cup that's already full. The fear of the Lord empties our cup of pride, so that it can be filled with something better. Think of Job in the Old Testament. He suffered terribly, and he spent most of the book demanding answers from God. He was convinced of his own righteousness. He thought he knew how the world should work. Then, at the end of the book, God finally shows up. And he doesn't give Job easy answers. Instead, he gives Job a glimpse of his power and majesty. He asks Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding." God goes on, describing the wonders of creation, the power over the sea, the mysteries of the stars and the wild animals. Job's response is profound. He says, "I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you, therefore I despise myself, and repent in dust and ashes." Job experienced the fear of the Lord. It wasn't terror. It was an overwhelming awe that instantly put his own life, his own suffering, and his own knowledge into perspective. That encounter didn't answer his questions, but it changed him. It humbled him. And in that humility, he found a deeper kind of wisdom, the wisdom of trusting God even when he couldn't understand. The beginning of his real wisdom was that moment of awe-filled fear. Once this humility takes root, the fear of the Lord starts to build a new foundation for your life. It gives you a moral compass. Wisdom isn't just about knowing facts, it's about knowing how to live. It's about making good choices. But how do you know what a good choice is? Our culture gives us all kinds of answers. Follow your heart, do what makes you happy. Look out for number one, get what's yours. These ideas sound good, but they are terrible guides for life. Our hearts are fickle. What makes us happy one moment can lead to ruin the next. Looking out for only ourselves leads to a lonely, selfish existence. This is worldly wisdom, and it often ends in confusion and pain. The fear of the Lord provides a different standard. It says that good and evil are not just matters of personal opinion or cultural trends. They are rooted in the character of God himself. God is holy, just, and loving. Therefore, a wise life is one that aligns with his character. The fear of the Lord means taking God seriously. It means taking his commands seriously. Not because you're afraid of being struck by lightning, but because you have a deep respect for the Creator and you trust that his design for life is the best one. When you see God as the ultimate reality, then his word becomes a lamp to your feet. The Ten Commandments are no longer just a list of restrictive rules. They are a blueprint for a flourishing society given by a loving Creator. The teachings of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount are no longer impossible ideals. They are a picture of life in God's kingdom, a life of profound wisdom and peace. This gives your life a true north. When you have to make a difficult decision, the question is no longer just, what do I want, or what will benefit me the most? The question becomes, what honors God? What aligns with his character? What is the wise and righteous path? This doesn't make decisions easy, but it makes them clearer. It provides a fixed point of reference in a chaotic world. Your life is no longer drifting on the waves of your own feelings or public opinion. It's anchored to something solid and unchanging. That stability is a core component of wisdom. This new foundation also changes your whole perspective. The fear of the Lord reorients your view of everything. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses that brings the world into proper focus. Without a sense of awe for God, we tend to see ourselves as the center of the universe. Our problems are the biggest problems. Our desires are the most important desires. Our story is the main story. This self-centered perspective is the source of so much anxiety, envy, and discontent. But when you start with God, you realize you are not the main character. He is. You are part of his much larger story. This is incredibly liberating. Your life isn't just about you anymore. It's about him. This frees you from the crushing pressure of having to build your own kingdom, make your own name, and find your own meaning. Your meaning is found in him. This perspective changes how you see other people. They are no longer just competitors, obstacles, or tools for your own happiness. You see them as fellow creatures made in the image of the same God you stand in awe of. This breeds compassion and respect. It makes you slower to judge and quicker to forgive. It's the beginning of wisdom in relationships. It changes how you see the world around you. A tree is not just wood. A mountain is not just a pile of rocks. They are part of God's creation, a display of his power and creativity. This fosters a sense of wonder and a desire to be a good steward of what he has made. It even changes how you see your work. Your job is not just a way to make money. It's an opportunity to use the gifts God has given you to serve others and to bring order and creativity into the world, reflecting the character of God himself. Whether you are a carpenter, a teacher, a doctor, or a parent, your work takes on new meaning. This total recalibration of your life is wisdom. It's seeing the world from God's point of view as best as we can. It's living in alignment with reality, and that reality is that God is at the center of everything, not us. The fear of the Lord is what makes this perspective shift possible. It's the jolt that knocks us out of our self-centered delusion and awakens us to the way things really are. Finally, the fear of the Lord leads to wisdom because it motivates obedience. This isn't the obedience of a robot following programming. It's the obedience of a child who loves and respects their parent. When you have a deep, reverent awe for God, you want to please him. You want to live in a way that honors him. Wisdom isn't just something you think. It's something you do. It's demonstrated in your choices, your actions, and your habits. The Bible book of James says that faith without works is dead. The same is true for wisdom. Wisdom without action is just useless information. A person can quote all the Proverbs in the world, but if their life is a mess of foolish choices, they are not wise. The fear of the Lord provides the motivation to close the gap between what we know is right and what we actually do. It's one thing to know that gossip is wrong. It's another thing to have the strength to keep your mouth shut when a juicy story comes along. The fear of the Lord reminds you that you are accountable to someone greater than your friends or your own impulses. It gives weight to your choices. It's one thing to know you should be generous. No, it's another thing to actually give your money away when you feel the pinch of financial insecurity. The fear of the Lord reminds you that God is your provider and that trusting Him with your resources is the wisest investment you can make. This obedience is not a joyless, rule-following slog. The Bible says that in God's presence is fullness of joy. His commands are not meant to restrict us, but to lead us into the best possible life. When we fear the Lord, you begin to trust that His way is truly the wise way, even when it doesn't make sense. You obey not out of blind duty, but out of a loving trust that the one you hold in awe knows what's best for you. Over time, this pattern of obedience builds character. It forms habits of patience, kindness, self-control, and integrity. This is what a wise life looks like. It's not about having a high IQ, it's about having a well-formed character. And that character is forged in the day-to-day choices we make, motivated by a deep and abiding reverence for God. So let's contrast this with the wisdom of the world. The world values a different kind of wisdom. The worldly wisdom is about being clever, cunning, and strategic. It's about knowing how to play the game, how to get ahead, how to maximize your own advantage. It's often cynical. It assumes everyone is out for themselves, so you better be too. This wisdom can make you rich, it can make you powerful, it can make you famous, but it can't make you wise in the biblical sense. It often leads to a life of anxiety, constantly worrying about your position and your possessions. It leads to broken relationships because people become objects to be used rather than persons to be loved. It leads to a deep-seated emptiness because no amount of success can fill the void that was made for God. The book of James in the New Testament talks about this directly. It says there are two kinds of wisdom. One is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. It's characterized by bitter envy and selfish ambition. This is the wisdom of the world. But then James describes the other kind of wisdom, the wisdom that comes from heaven. He says it is first pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. This is the wisdom that grows from the fear of the Lord. Notice the difference. Worldly wisdom is all about the self. Godly wisdom is all about relationships with God and with others. It's about purity, peace, and mercy. It's a completely different operating system for life. The fear of the Lord is what installs that new operating system. It moves the self from the center of the hard drive and installs God there instead. Everything else then begins to run differently. Let's think about how this plays out in some of the hardest parts of life. What about suffering? Worldly wisdom has very little to offer in the face of deep pain. It can offer distractions, platitudes, or cynicism. It might tell you to just be strong or to find someone to blame. The wisdom that comes from the fear of the Lord offers something else. It doesn't necessarily provide easy answers. Just like with Job, God doesn't always explain why we suffer, but the fear of the Lord provides a context for suffering. It reminds us that we are in the hands of a God who is both all-powerful and all-loving. It fosters a deep trust, a belief that even in the darkest moments, God is still sovereign and He is still good. This is not a blind optimism. It is a rugged, hard-won hope. It's the wisdom to hold on to God when everything else is falling apart. It's the wisdom to lament and grieve, honestly, while still maintaining a fundamental trust in the one you hold in awe. This kind of wisdom can't be learned from a book. It's forged in the fire of life, but the raw material is the fear of the Lord. What about our relationships? Worldly wisdom says to protect yourself. Don't be vulnerable. Keep a record of wrongs. Cut people off if they hurt you. Get even. The wisdom that flows from a reverence for God says something very different. It says to forgive as you have been forgiven. It says to love your enemies. It says to be humble and to consider others better than yourselves. This is foolishness to the world. But it's the path to deep, meaningful, and resilient relationships. It's hard. It requires a strength that doesn't come from us. But when you live in awe of a God who would forgive His own enemies, it changes what seems possible in your own life. You start to see that a life of forgiveness and humility isn't a life of weakness, but a life of true strength and wisdom. In the end, the fear of the Lord leads to wisdom because it aligns us with reality. The most fundamental truth about the universe is that God is, and we are not Him. Any wisdom that ignores this central fact is, at its core, foolishness. It's like trying to be a master navigator while insisting that the sun revolves around your own ship. You might be very clever in your calculations, but you are fundamentally lost because your starting point is wrong. The fear of the Lord is the act of correcting that starting point. It's admitting that God is the sun, and our lives are meant to orbit around Him. It is a profound and ongoing reorientation of the soul. It starts with awe, which crushes our pride and makes us teachable. That humility allows us to accept God's word as our moral compass, providing a stable guide for life. This new guide changes our entire perspective, freeing us from the prison of self-centeredness. And this new perspective motivates a life of loving obedience, which is how wisdom takes shape in our actual character and choices. It's not a one-time event. It's a lifelong posture. It's waking up each day and remembering who God is and who you are. It's choosing to live in light of that reality. It's a continuous turning away from the foolishness of self-worship and a turning toward the wisdom of God worship. So, the fear of the Lord is not about being scared. It's about being rightly oriented. It's about seeing the world and your life with clear eyes. It's the key that unlocks the door to a life of true meaning, purpose, and flourishing. It is, and always will be, the very beginning of wisdom.